Hey guys, welcome to our very first chess video. My name is Nicholas Ng, spelled NG and actually pronounced and I am a GM from the Earl Hague Chess Club. And by GM I mean General Member, not Grandmaster. Although, I am the best in the club, so, you know. So, without further ado, let's get into the video. Alright, so today I'll be talking about the Vienna Gambit, and I'll be showing you some tips and tricks, and some vicious traps you can use. So the Vienna system, first of all, starts after e4, e5. So, and now instead of playing the normal move, knight f6, we're going to play knight c3. And here, black has two main moves, knight c6 or knight f6. If they play knight f6, now you can enter the Vienna Gambit with the move f4. So the reason I love this gambit so much is because in this position, there's only one good move for black, and that's d5. But if you're watching this, and if you're around the beginner to intermediate level, even anything below 1500, you're probably not going to get the move d5. So I'm going to show you what to do if they do accept the gambit. So if they accept the gambit, they're already losing. Because first, you have e5, and now the knight has nowhere to go. You cover all these squares. The queen covers this. Can't draw arrows. So the benefit of this, so now black only has two main moves. He either has to move his knight back to g8, or he can play queen e7. I've even had people blunder the knight. If they blunder knight, you just take it. And you're just up a piece on move 5. So now, if they go back to, so they have two main moves. If they go back to knight to g8, now it may look like the obvious move is d4, but d4 is not good because of queen h4 check. And now you're the one losing, because queen h4 check, if you block with g3, they can just take it. And if you take back, you lose a rook. So now you're the one losing. So first you actually have to play, before you play d4, you have to play knight f3 to stop this. Common move for black now is knight c6. Just putting pressure on your pawn. Now you can go d4. And now your bishop is here, and you can make the recapture. Is attacking the pawn. Now if they play d6 here, there is an important rule to remember. Even if they play d5, you never want to take this pawn. Well, no, actually, not never. When they first play it, you don't want to take the pawn. So if they play d6 in this position, you just capture. And if they take, here's another rule to remember. You always play queen e2. Pinning the pawn to the king. The pawn cannot capture. And now if they try to just block the pin, now you can recapture. So in this position, it's pretty good for white. It's like +1, so it's saying you're up a pawn, even though. So this pawn can't be held onto. It's gonna fall. You have long castles, and then once the rook is here, you can take this pawn, and there'll be a discovered attack on the queen. And this position is just good for white. So if we go back a few moves, let's say they don't want to move the knight. If they play queen e7, now, first, you have to play queen e2. So the point of queen e7 is to pin the pawn to the king, so now you can't take. This is actually a mistake. It looks kind of natural, but it's a mistake. So now you just play queen e2. And after queen e2, the knight still has nowhere to go, but back home. So now they have to go back home. And you don't play d4 yet, because you don't want to be run into this. Here you just play knight f3. And then here, if they play knight c6 attacking your pawn, now you play d4. And here is a very vicious trap, which I have got a lot of people. A very, very natural move for black is the move d6, trying to undermine the center. But this is completely losing. Because now you play knight d5. So first of all, what does this do? If the queen ever comes to e7, you always look for this knight d5 move. Because first, this hits the queen. And it's also adding pressure onto the c7 square. So if you play something like queen e6, you just have a fork. And you just win. You win the queen. So the common move for black here is queen d7, and this is also completely losing. because now you can take this pawn with a discovered check, and if he blocks, you win a piece, right? So if he blocks, the pawn will just take, and it's not good. So here, probably the best move, the only move, is king d8. But now this is even worse, because now you have pawn takes c7. And now black's king has no legal moves. The only legal move in this position is for him to sacrifice the queen, and you're just completely winning. Like, so yeah, so just some general rules to remember. If the queen ever comes to e7, try to find this knight d5 move, hitting, and it just forks everything. Not a pleasant position. And always make sure to play knight f3 before, if this pawn is here, so there's no, this check doesn't exist, because if this pawn wasn't here, then you could play g3, that would work. So there's also a few other ways they can respond, which are not good. Like, for example, if they bring out the next knight, well, now this is not good. Now we can just capture the pawn, they recapture the knight. Now in this position, we can go d4, because there's no queen h5 check, queen h4 check, because the knight's in the way. But the knight can come back to here, but let's say it goes back to g6. But now we keep attacking. Now we play e5, and once again, this knight has nowhere to go. So he has to go back home, and now you can just go for the same position. So now it's the same thing, except we haven't even lost a pawn. We just have the full center, 2 knights, open development, and we're doing really well here. So another move that black has is the move d6, just defending this pawn. This is actually really, I mean, it's not super great for black as he blocks in his own dark squared bishop. Just remember, in this position, we don't want to be taking, we want him to take us. We don't want to take it, and we can just develop our knights normally. Bishop here, e3, castles. So just as a final conclusion, remember that in the Vienna Gambit, if they accept the gambit, we always go e5. Knight has to go back. If the knight goes anywhere else, we just capture it and we just win. So if the knight goes back, then we don't play d4 immediately. We don't go for d4 yet because of queen h4 check. We have to play knight f3 first, and then we can go for d4. And just some final rules that if the queen ever comes to e7, we should always be looking for this knight d5 move. And if this pawn ever moves, we do not want to take it. We're just going to reinforce with d4. And if it's taken, we do not take back immediately. We go for queen e2, pinning the pawn. So just remember this. And here we can actually recapture this later if they just keep developing. We can just do this, and then we can take this pawn later. So because this pawn's not going anywhere. So yeah. So good luck with this gambit, and I hope you guys get some nice wins with it.